Yes, I'm presenting very briefly to introduce the USA special version of the Global Change Analysis Model, GCAM USA. So yes, so we don't need to repeat a lot of the information about GCAM, which John and Dirk already presented very nicely in the first workshop. But just want to remind everyone, GCAM USA is actually embedded in the global version model. So it is share a lot of similarity of the structure and what it does, how it's designed, how that is maintained. So I just want to pull out some of the high level important information about GCAM, about its integrated assessment model, tracks all the greenhouse gas emissions, produce long-term scenarios, and is also maintained as an open source community model. And for GCAM USA specifically, it is a version of GCAM with 50 state level resolution in the United States, but it's also part of the global GCAM. So if you can see in the global version, we have 32 energy economic region, which USA is a one GCAM region. But now in this GCAM USA version, we further break down to the 50 state level. So when we run GCAM USA, it's actually running 50 plus 30, the other 31 region of the rest of the global. So in the model, energy transformation, primarily electricity and refined liquid production, and also the end use demand are modeled at the individual state level. And for now, the primary fossil energy production is aggregated still at the national level, and the crop, including biomass production, is at the water basin level, which all the agriculture land use dynamics happening in the global model. And also for the US, we have 22 US water basins. So that's the resolution there. So for air pollutant, we have state level resolution. For some of the non-CO2, not all the non-CO2 greenhouse gases are at the state level currently. So that part is under development. Hopefully it will be available soon. And also just want to say, when you download the open source version of GCAM, there is kind of the GCAM USA. It's we have couple national version of the model. Only GCAM USA is part of the release version. So people can also try it on its own. Because a lot of the, as I mentioned, the national version and the global version share a lot of similar features. So I won't repeat a lot of what the model structure and how it works slides that you can definitely refer to the GCAM global slide deck. What I want to do here is focus on how at CGS and UMD, we have applied the GCAM USA model in the policy context, especially for the US. It's hopefully that can give you an idea of the work we do and how we use the model. So what we focus here is basically the climate mitigation strategy in the US, but what we call it is an all-in climate strategy, which include not only the federal government, but also the state, the cities, the businesses, and also civil society. So all of those players we try to model in GCAM USA, because in the US, as if you kind of have some knowledge about our political system, the national government can only do to a certain extent. But I think a lot of the bottom-up climate action has been pushing and has been driving a lot of the U.S. climate action, especially when the federal government were not engaged on the climate agenda. But now, currently, it's all of the society are working towards the same goal. So we develop policy platform that including all the players, and we try to model their specific policy and their specific targets. Start with the kind of the recent federal policy from the U.S., including the last year's infrastructure investment and job act and the Inflation Reduction Rate Act this year. A lot of the policy are actually focusing on investment and subsidies, kind of the incentives. So how we model that in GCAM USA is changing the cost parameter for different technologies, assuming a lot of the investment go for example, go to EV infrastructure that will lower the cost. Another type of example, we model specific policies about coal phase out. For USA, we have a constraint that assume a 2030 coal phase out, which also in the policy are kind of represented as incentive for coal to phase out. But like how you interpreted that policy, we also rely on others' analysis about how those individual policies will work on coal phase out. And also we another parameter we change is to modify consumer preferences. For example, for bus electrification and also heat pump in buildings with incentives, and consumers will more likely move towards those technology. Another example is the fuel efficiency from transportation sector, that we have CAFE standard that all the new cars on the road will increasing their fuel standard along the years. The benefit of using GCAM USA is like we can represent other subnational non-federal actors. So here we actually go through a very complex process, building all the policies, collecting the data from different levels, and we aggregate them into the state level because GCAM USA's resolution is at the state level. And then we can use the model to understand how those subnational or kind of a non-federal actions, including the federal policy, how that aggregate to the emission reduction for the United States. So this table just give you some examples about what are the type of policies we go through for each individual sector at those different levels. So for example, like renewable portfolio standards are really major policy tools at the state level. And also a lot of cities have that included in their actions. Transportation, we also see a lot of action at the local level compared to federal. Same, for example, on the building sector. So we go through all of that, and we kind of design all of those as an input file for GCAM USA. So just give you a very high level results from our analysis. Basically, our existing policy at all the levels can already achieve a 39% emission reduction for the United States by 2030, which, if you know, the target for US is 50 to 52%. So we are still not quite there yet with all the policy on the table today. But you can see also there is a range there because how you interpret it, as I mentioned, some of the policies are, based on investment and incentives. There might be uncertainties about the range, but it's 37 to 42. So that doesn't change the core key findings. To get to 52%, which is our second scenario, we call it beyond 50 scenario, which just means you achieve more than 50% reduction. That will include, that will require all the actors across different parts of the society continue not only with the existing policy, but continue to enhance ambition using all the policy levers available in across sectors to be able to achieve the 52% as stated in the NDC target. So another example, like we mentioned, the coal phase out 2030, that's important for US, especially for the electricity sector to achieve, to help achieve the target. So the other application we did is combine long-term scenario from GCAM USA, that's aligned with 1.5 global ambitions target, but we also combine that with the bottom-up facility level system. So we at individual coal-fired power plants in the US, and we develop kind of an algorithm, retirement algorithm to decide how the individual coal plants can be retired in a feasible pathway that based on multiple dimensions, not just the climate change, but also, for example, for their local environmental impacts, how their economic performance look like. So we base on that multi-criteria to develop a plant-by-plant retirement pathway. We also working with our own state, the state of Maryland, because we have the breakdown to look at individual state. Our state also have announced a very ambitious climate target, 60% reduction by 2031, achieve net zero by 2045. So this is included in the Climate Solution Now Act of 2022. So it just announced this year. We're working closely with our state to develop a concrete strategy to help them to achieve the 2031 goal. So for a kind of a analysis for that comprehensive one, we did look at the state's manufacturing sector, which actually are having large cement facilities operating. So we also did a manufacturing deep dive for the state earlier this year. I think here just a summary about the work that beyond our own group has been done using GCAM USA. I already mentioned the assessment on US and DC long-term strategy and all of society climate action. And there are others work that look at specific policy design, how that affect the cost of achieving target, and a lot of paper focusing on energy system and, for example, the gas pipeline infrastructure development. Also, there's a special version with power system dispatch, also embedded within GCAM USA. And there are a lot of papers on air pollution and health co-benefits at the state level, and the kind of a very typical topic that IAM look at, kind of a multi-system dynamic, water, energy, land interaction. There are a lot of work in that area. Also, I want to mention also most recent work that disaggregate consumer groups into the residential building sector, so we can look at questions like energy access, energy equity, how the impacts will be distributed across different consumer groups into the long run. I think I went through everything very quickly. Those are just some selected references, and all the documentation is actually with a global version together. With that, I will end there and happy to answer questions. Thank you.